Squishies! Welcome back to another vlog. This is Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Season 3, Episode 8, Lint Catcher and Trial by Squire. So this kind of picks up where Episode 7 left off, with Marco arriving at Star's, while Star is hanging out with Tom. It feels at the start like it's about to be relationship drama, and then it actually kind of evades that, which I like. There's a moment when they're walking down the stairs and Marco starts to ask if Star and Tom are together, and she kind of cuts him off with yes. And he gets this kind of stunned expression. And I mean, that kind of makes sense, in a way. There's a tendency to, when we don't see someone for a while, kind of forget that they have a life of their own, and they're going to continue developing and evolving and changing in their own ways. Nobody is ever the same person moment to moment. Not really. Our memories trick us into thinking that we are, but really we're just constantly changing. And when you see someone a lot, you're able to track all those changes, and you're kind of evolving together. You may evolve toward each other or away from each other, but you're both evolving, and you're both seeing each other evolve. That's when you separate from someone for a while, especially at an age where there is a ton of change happening, like drastic change happening very quickly. You know, people in their 30s, barring major life changes, like changing to a new career or moving across the city, or not the city, moving across the country, or getting married, having a kid, transitioning. Like, major life events can spark sudden, rapid change. But mostly, if somebody's like in their late 20s, 30s, on from there, they're not going to change super fast because there's not a lot in the environment to push them to change. When somebody's 12, 14, that age range, well, they've got the major life event of puberty happening. They've got adolescence going on. There's a lot of very rapid change going on. So even a separation of a few months can be enough to have this effect of you've been doing all your changing and they've been doing all your changing, and then you see each other again and you're different people. In this case, Star has evolved a lot more than Marco has. Marco has somewhat evolved from the person he was at the beginning of the series, but Star has evolved drastically more, because she's had so many more changes going on. She has gone from Muni to Earth and back to Muni, and that's prompted a lot of change. And she is a lot less frenetic, has much more awareness of her own feelings and where they're coming from, much more sensitivity to others. She has matured a lot over the course of the show. And that becomes really starkly clear when she and Marco come back together after a long separation, and we see how different their dynamic is. And she makes Marco her squire with the idea that they can hang out and be friends and be best friends forever. And I mean, bravo on the impulse, and it's a very 13, 14-year-old girl thing to do. 15? Star's 15, right? No, she's 14, that's right. Because every animated character ever is 14. I'm remembering now, I once worked on an alignment grid of 14-year-old cartoon characters. Um, I went back and forth on whether Star should go in chaotic neutral or chaotic evil, but she's definitely chaotic neutral, shading into chaotic good at this point. And it was all 14-year-olds. I remember True Neutral was Rei Ayanami. Lawful Good was either Madoka Kaname or Sailor Moon. I don't know if I made up my mind. And Lawful Evil was Azula from Avatar The Last Airbender. I don't remember who else was on it. Steven Universe. He was neutral good, I think. Anyway, that's off topic. But point is, she's 14, and it's a very 14-year-old girl thing to do, to be like, we'll be friends forever. Because you don't know what forever is when you're 14. But it is very rare for someone you were for your best friend from when you were 14 to still be your best friend when you're 35, 50, 70. It's rare for them even to be your friend at all. Very often, somebody who was your best friend, basically any friend from before your 20s, it's hard to stay in contact with. I have a few friends from that time period that I am still somewhat in contact with, but it's the occasional message. It's not regular, frequent contact. Including people who would, one time were my best friends. Which is sad, but it's life. And so that impulse though makes sense because she's seeing how much she's changed, and therefore, because change is relative, from her perspective, how much Marco has changed. Even though from our perspective, he hasn't changed that much. A little, but not a ton. But she's seeing that, and she's seeing how their dynamic has changed. And so she makes this move to keep them friends forever because I think it scared her a little to see how different their dynamic was. So he's her squire now, and Tom's her boyfriend, and we don't really see how interactions between the two of them go anymore, but they are friendly, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And if they remain friendly, I hope they do. And that kind of carries us into the second half of the episode, which is this trial by squire thing, and I really didn't like it. It's just a purely personal, emotional thing. I don't like overt bullying as a source of conflict. I, believe me, am very aware that it's a thing that happens. That is, in fact, the problem. Is it reminds me of things that happened to me and that I don't particularly enjoy being reminded of. But yeah, kids around that age or a little younger are vicious and cruel, and anyone new or different will be viciously and cruelly and pointlessly targeted, attacked, tormented, just because they can. And that's exactly what we see happening throughout this episode, and it's really deeply unpleasant, and there's some character-ish thing going on where Marco wants to prove he's worthy of it, and Star is like, well, duh, no you're not, I just did this so we can be friends. So it's more or less confirming what I was saying about the previous episode, but that's all kind of washed out by just how much I dislike. Triggered's a strong word. It's something which, at one time might have. I know there have been times in the years ago where that happened. I've strengthened my mental defenses over time, and I've healed some, and so I wouldn't go as far as to call it triggered anymore, but it is still viscerally unpleasant. So not a huge fan of that part. But yeah. Basically, we've got a new dynamic between the two of them, and we'll see how it shapes out over the rest of the season, I guess. That's about it. Thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Patreon for early access to vlogs, essays, let's plays, and more. And I will see you all next time. Bye!